Hello, this is Goku for one.
And I'm Dan. Torreygnr1
And we're here to talk about what should be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, but most likely will not be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
No, I have zero confidence. It's going to be good. You get the director of Battle Los Angeles and Michael Bay behind it. That is not good news to me.
Okay. The first thing I have to say is that if I personally was just directing a movie, I would do something completely different than if I was told, okay, you're doing a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought about this, and tell me what you think about this.
Sure.
I thought about it, and first of all I want to see the Triceratons.
That'd be interesting.
In live action. I'm tired of Shredder being the villain, per se, even though he's only been the villain for, I think, half the movies. I think the first movie, I don't want to see the Shredder, per se.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Saving the Shredder for a future film would make sense if they know they're going to get sequels.
Yeah. Now, if I was doing a trilogy, like if they told me, you're doing a trilogy, I actually would adhere to the comics a lot more in such a way as here's how I would do a trilogy, is the first movie would be basically the first movie. I would take that movie and, take the main story and then make my own version of that, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it works so well for what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the beginning of my movie would start out like number 2, in that they're discovering the ooze, but then they find out the Utrons created them, and they get transported to this alien world where they have to fight the Triceratons and the Earth Federation, or what are they called? Do you know?
I don't remember, no.
But you know what I'm referring to,
Yeah,
right?
I know what you're talking about.
And it would end with them getting back home, and then the third film would be basically they find out the Shredder very much is alive, and essentially a lot of stuff has gone down since they've been gone, and they have to defeat the Shredder again.
That'd be cool.
That's how I would personally do it.
Yeah.
What would you do if you were going to do a Turtles movie or trilogy?
If I were to do a trilogy or just any movie, me personally, I'm not a big fan of big scale science fiction stuff with the Turtles. I like the more, I just personally gravitate a little bit more towards the street level stuff. That's very character study intensive. Sort of like the IDW book right now, where it has a good amount of science fiction in it, but it's the Turtles still fighting ninjas and doing martial arts things on Earth. And digging into their characters. I really, that's the approach to the Turtles I really like to see, because I think sometimes if you're going to try to sell this movie to people, you've already got to suspend their disbelief that there's talking turtles running around, you know. So I stay away from that stuff just personally. I'd probably use villains like Baxter Stockman. I think he'd be an interesting corporate tycoon villain that you could angle against the Turtles for the first film, as a scientist. And then, eventually get
the Mousers at all?
Yeah, you could use the Mousers. I wouldn't use them as, the major antagonists of the film like they've been used in some of the comic book issues, because they're not really all that threatening, I don't think. At least in their original design. They might have to tweak it a little bit if they were going to use them as, the major threat of the movie. But, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing them. I don't know who I'd use for the second film. Maybe introduce Shredder in the second one, and then have Krang as, a post-credits thing, and have them team up in the last one, because Shredder and Krang teaming up is something that I always like to see, I think that would make a good closer out for the trilogy if I were to do a trilogy.
Yeah,
I'd try my best to give all the Turtles something to do too. Leonardo and Raphael are usually the ones that get things to do. I'd really try to make a focus on making headway with Donatello and Michelangelo's characters too, instead of just being comic relief or the guy that has an out for every problem they have with goofy science.
Well, my problem is, if I did these movies, I'd probably focus on Donatello and Michelangelo.
Yeah, Donatello's my favorite turtle, so...
and mine's Michelangelo, so I probably would focus on those two characters, because I think you could do great things with them.
Mm-hmm.
I think Michelangelo could be be the greatest character. Like now that I've read or watched the entire 2003 cartoon, which I'm going to go on record to say, if you want to get into the Turtles and you have the ability to do that, that is the best way to get into the Turtles, in my opinion. If you don't want to go and buy monthly comics.
Yeah, I'd say either that show or the first movie, or the trades of the new IDW book. Those are probably the best quality Turtles things that are extremely accessible.
Yes, yeah. Unfortunately, the 2003 cartoon is not extremely accessible. It's like they're doing the DVDs really weird.
Yeah, I noticed with the 80s series that was released really strangely on DVD. I wasn't aware that the 2003 one was like that too. Hopefully now that the 80s series just got re-released in a nice box set in the Turtle van, we can get one for the 2003 one too.
Well, I don't know if Nickelodeon's going to be in a hurry to do that, because they're the owners of the Turtles and they have a new cartoon, so they might not want to.
I mean, they just put out the 80s one, so.
Was it them, or was this something in the works beforehand?
I'm not really sure, but I don't think the rights holders before could have put out a box set if Nickelodeon owns the rights, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, if it was already in works, there might be, I don't know.
But anyway.
Yeah. But what you were saying before is that you don't like the big, like, space things. I didn't like that at first, and when I saw I saw episodes of the 2003 cartoon, and I was going, this is nothing like the old cartoon. The old cartoon never had stuff like this. And it does. It has a lot of it,
yeah.
but you just don't. But as a kid, I didn't know that, because I don't know if I ever mentioned this. Me and Captain Logan, born same year.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of our experiences are the same.
Mm-hmm.
You're a little younger, so I grew up with the Turtles. Basically, I grew up in the age when the Turtles were like the most popular thing known to man.
They were really popular when I was a kid too.
Yeah. I don't know when they started waning in popularity. I never knew of the comics. Like, I grew up not knowing of the comics.
Yeah, I didn't really know them. I didn't really know the comic books existed either. I just knew the 80s show, and I was really into that. I was really into the video games and the movies, and then I remember the 2003 series came out, and that was sort of when I rediscovered them as something that was, like, you know, legitimately worth watching. Like, I just remembered the Turtles as a kid as, like, you know, fun, you know, martial arts action stuff, but I never knew that it had, like, storytelling depth to it and stuff. So
yeah. Though one thing I asked my dad earlier, and I will relate this to the Turtles, is that my dad was watching Back to the Future, and I asked my dad, "Did you take me to see that?" And he was like, "Yeah." When I was a kid, and I was like, "I was 1. Wasn't I crying?" He was like, "No, you were a silent baby in theaters." And that's probably why I remember going to see all these movies, like Batman and Turtles, in theaters. Because I think my dad actually took me to see movies like that in theaters.
That's awesome.
So I'm nearly positive I saw the Turtles in.
Oh, that's cool. I wish I got that chance. I wasn't even born when it came out in theaters.
Well, Dan, I was born in 84. Yeah. Star Wars Episode 6 came out in 83. I feel your pain.
That's very true.
Yes.
So, the Turtles reboot. Let's see, like...
Okay, what are the essential elements? We've talked about what we would do. What do they need to have? Is Shredder vital? I think we both agree not necessarily.
I think he's vital if you're going to do a series of films. Like, if you know you're going to get sequels, and you know that you can save villains for down the line, I think Shredder is essential to the Turtles story as a character.
Absolutely.
They need him in there. Not necessarily for a first film, though, I agree.
Okay. What's other villains they could use for, hypothetically, the first film? I say Triceratons just because I want to see them in live action. I think they would be really interesting. And they're a large enough scale villain that you could do a summer blockbuster with them. That's my problem with Baxter Stockman, is I think he's a sidekick villain.
He is sometimes in the comics, but I think you could rewrite him so that he's making him a rich Norman Osborn type scientist guy that's the head of a corporate entity. I think could work really well.
April, would you keep her reporter or would you turn her into scientist chick? I say reporter just because that's blindly how I think the audience thinks she is.
If we're rebooting it, and we're going to be doing something different, I wouldn't mind seeing her as a scientist. Maybe subvert people's expectations a little bit. I wouldn't really have a problem with it, especially since this is a property that I'd like to see some different things done with.
No, I agree with you. My biggest problem with the original movie is it's so good, I wouldn't want it to be rebooted. I would want them to do stuff like they've done in the past with, like, Superman and, I can't think of any other examples. I know there's a big one.
You're talking about, like, Superman Returns, like going back to the old continuity and telling stories?
Yeah. And the problem with that is that it confuses your audience.
Right. I mean, I don't think if you were to sequel the first movie and, like, forget that Secret of the Ooze and the third film happened, it might be a little inaccessible in that, like, you'd have to, like, explain what happened to the Shredder and stuff, but, like, if you were to just hit the ground running with, like, we're making another Turtles movie, the Shredder died in the last movie, let's deal with all of that stuff, I don't think it would necessarily confuse people as long as you don't make it confusing and reference things all the time, because you only have one movie's continuity behind you, you know?
Yeah, I understand. I just think that the audience would kind of be... Like, I think when you're saying X films aren't part of the series, I think that confuses the audience. Reboots are easier because you can just do what you want.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd definitely rather see them reboot it and then just sort of stick to the tone and feel of the first movie.
Yeah. One thing that I talked to somebody is, would you prefer, how would you prefer it? Would you prefer costumes or CG for the Turtles?
I think that the costumes in the original films worked really well. So if they were able to get costumes that looked just as good, if not better, than the ones in the original film, then I'd be totally fine with them using those. Maybe since movie technology has progressed so much since the days of indie 90s cinema, we could get costumes that would allow the actors to move around a little bit more and put stuntmen that can do amazing feats of martial arts in those suits. I don't know if that's even possible to be pulled off, but I think they could. That would be the ideal avenue I would at least try if I was in charge of the project. I would go for costumes first before I did CG because practical effects just look so much better to me and hold up so much better.
I would actually do something. I would do a hybrid in which I would do kind of like Iron Man, where you actually have costumes, but they're very bare bones.
Mm-hmm.
There are things in the right place so that when you're creating the turtles in the computer, you have a base to create them from, but they're made to be moved in. Like, the suits are just, like, these suits, actors can do anything they want in them, basically.
Right, yeah. That's nice.
And so you don't have to worry about, these costumes, you're also going to have to move in them, because that's the idea of the costumes. That's what they're building them to do, if you know what I mean.
Right. I just would like to see the Turtles be able to move a little bit more than the costumes that they had before. That's sort of what I meant. But
yeah, I'm just saying that's how I would do it. Yeah, because I think things like Iron Man looked believable, right?
Yeah, Iron Man looked great.
And that was very CG. Like, there was a costume, but it was never really a full suit of armor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can do stuff like that nowadays. The thing about CG is that when you do the Star Wars effect, where everything is CG all the time, every time, I think not necessarily that it looks as fake as everyone says it does, because I hear people telling me the CG in Episode 1 is bad, or in Episode 2 and 3. And I'm like, no, it's not. I don't think that at all. I think the CG is great. I think, but because they use it so much, people think it looks bad because they know they're looking at CG basically every moment of every second, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I don't know. If I can like pick something out that like is so obviously CG that it takes me out of the viewing experience, I would consider that not the greatest, and that's sort of where I come from when I say I don't really care for the CG in the prequels, but it's definitely not the worst CG I've seen.
I mean, I think it's a step above most films. The problem with it is that they do go a step beyond, and they use it like George Lucas actually, I think, bragged. I have CG in every single scene. That's not something I want to hear. I want to hear I have CG because that's what I had to do to make this scene work.
Yeah, or at the very least, I have a story to tell.
Yeah. But I mean, and the point is first of all, is I do want the Turtles movie to be practical. I want them to build the sewers. I want them to actually be shot in real cities. Because they should be, if you know what I mean.
Right. So, if we're thinking tone here, because tone with Turtles is such a big point of contention for a lot of fans. Some people like the lighter tone, some people like the darker tone, some people, like myself, like something that's a marriage between the two, a happy medium between the two of them. Like the first movie, like the 2003 cartoon, and like the new comic. That's sort of my definitive Turtles. That you can have humor, but it also can get really dark at times. What tone would you ideally put in a Turtles movie if you were to make one?
Same kind of concept. I'd probably have it a little darker, but I would have comic relief.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of like fighting too. That would be another big factor in this film, and conveying the tone right would be the level of violence that you have.
Well, the one thing I would do is, first of all, is I would make sure mine is PG-13, just so I could do things like, if the Shredder was in my movie, he would kill people.
Yeah.
Not main characters, but he would absolutely kill somebody. There is no question about it. You would know this guy is for serious.
Yeah.
You wouldn't question him. And I'm not talking about, like, in the backstory where he kills Splinter's master. No, I'm serious, like if he's on the streets and a citizen gets in his way, he would just kill him.
Yeah, that's definitely what I would go for, too.
Because the idea is that I don't care about getting kids in the theaters as much as I care about telling a good story.
Right, and you can show the Shredder and various other people in the film killing people. It's just at the level at which how gratuitous you make it, obviously, right? Like if the Shredder like stabs someone in the head and blood is like spurting out of their head, obviously, that's not a movie that's suitable for kids. But if you have Shredder like stab a guy in the stomach and you don't show the blood and you just see the guy fall to the ground, then it is made.
It might be impaled in the head, but the guy would land on the ground and you would just see the dead body and you wouldn't see the blood.
Right, exactly. That's the sort of approach I would take with it too.
Yeah, so absolutely. So it is a PG-13 movie. I would definitely go for a PG-13 movie, because you can have kids in a PG-13 movie, like Avengers.
Yeah, definitely. And what I wanted to mention before we moved on from the violence thing was not just the villains, but the Turtles themselves obviously are weapon-carrying, martial artists. And Raphael and Leonardo especially are two characters that have bladed weapons that are used to cut, rip, and stab people's flesh. Would you have them... Obviously, the Turtles aren't characters that are going to be, leaving a huge body count. But... would you have the Turtles stabbing and killing people if needed in the film?
Capable people. Like, probably the Shredder?
Yeah, like,
I would have them stab people that aren't going to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Foot Ninja, no.
Yeah.
Just because I don't want them to have a body count. But, like, the Shredder, yes, because the Shredder's a guy that is going to get up after being stabbed in the chest.
Well, it depends on how you do them in your film universe, but
I don't know. I probably would go. I might go a little Supernatural-esque.
I'd ideally go completely supernatural with it.
Okay. How about For potentially a future movie, how do you feel about actually setting it in the past correctly?
Like, what do you mean? Like setting it in like 80s New York or something?
No. Actually making a movie like 3 where they do go in the past, but it's related to our characters, it's related to our universe, and it tells you something about our world and about our characters. It's not unrelated to anything.
I wouldn't mind if they took the approach that they're doing in the current comics now, where we open the film with Splinter and his human kids in feudal Japan. They get killed by this dude that looks like the Shredder, and then we don't see that dude until the 3rd film, and it's a huge surprise to them that he's back and everything. And they go with the reincarnation angle, and that's how you build in all the supernatural elements that inform the Shredder when he comes in later on.
Yeah, but I mean something like in the like the idea that I had, and yes, this is related to the newer comics. If you're reading them, the Secret History of the Foot Clan, but this is my interpretation of it. Is essentially you go back to feudal Japan and you find out the origin of the Foot Clan, and in a way, if you would, I don't know how you would be okay with this, but in a way, actually have the Turtles be part of the genesis of the Foot Clan. Like, they might have actually made their greatest enemy by helping somebody introvertedly. Like, doing something good could have actually created the worst thing they'll ever have to deal with. Something like that.
Yeah, that's the sort of what I was talking about if you flash back to feudal Japan at the beginning of the movie with them as... You could have them a little bit older, too. Have them as fully formed teenagers and then have their lives ended there. And they could be like, up-and-coming warriors within the clan or just up-and-coming warriors in general and then do something that creates the Foot Clan.
Yeah, because the idea of the 3rd movie, and what I was talking about is time travel, but your idea also works. But the whole idea of having a movie go back in time and not deal with anything relevant to the Turtles was a bad idea. Like, if they had done something with the Foot Clan in that movie, or if the main villain had been like a ancestor of the Shredder, we would have cared more about that film, I think.
Well, I mean, I don't think it has to be inherently related to the Turtles plot-wise. I mean, there's many different things many different ways you could go character-wise with them if you put them back in that time where everyone is sort of within the same culture as them. I don't necessarily think that you need to include Shredder and everything to make a good story out of sending them to feudal Japan. I just think the execution was so bad in that movie.
No, it is, but I'm saying connecting it to something we already care about makes it easier to do it.
Are you talking about, like, if we were to do that in a sequel?
Yes.
I could see that happening. The only thing I would resist about it, obviously, is that it's, similar to something that was already made.
No, and I agree with you, and your idea is kind of better, is to actually have it be, in a way, if the first movie was all about Baxter Stockman, and actually, I think the current comic books would make for kind of a good movie, in a way, change things around a little bit, make Baxter Stockman the main villain.
Yeah, and
he's genetically trying to engineer this for X person you'll get to meet in part 2.
Krang or someone, whatever.
Yes, and then basically reveal that the Turtles are actually related. Like, one thing I thought they were going to do in the comics, which I'll put spoiler alert in the beginning of this somewhere. The thing I thought they were going to do is I actually kind of thought, for a second, I thought they were going to relate April to the past.
That would have been interesting.
Making her like the reincarnation of the mother. In a way, they did kind of make her a mother figure to the Turtles. Even though she's much younger than she is in a lot of continuities, she is kind of like the mother figure in that she did take care of the Turtles.
And she named all of them, too.
Yeah, so I do like that. I do like that. I do like these characters are a lot more connected in good ways. Like you were talking about in your Spider-Man video, Captain Logan hates that the new Spider-Man movie, that all these things happen, but they're not believable that they would all happen like that. The Turtles comics aren't like that.
Yeah, they're extremely smart in the way they plot everything. I think that comic book for me has become the definitive Turtles continuity already. Like, I like that version of the Turtles much more than anything else I've experienced.
Yeah.
And I think that's where they should be taking cues, because it successfully takes every incarnation of the Turtles, throws them in a melting pot, and comes out with something really good.
No, and it absolutely does. And I mean, like, I have a friend of mine who hates the surfer kids.
Yeah.
I love them in this.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, when I first saw them, I think on a cover, before I actually knew how they were going to do them, I was like, I don't know if I like this. They're great. I mean, they were really, really, really good. And such is the effect that I was only going to read the main book. I'm already budgeting for the micro-series villains, if you didn't know they're coming out with that.
Yeah, I saw the preview for the Krang one. The cover looks awesome.
Yes. And like as I told my friend, we're getting a Shredder one.
Oh yeah, definitely, and probably Bebop and Rocksteady as well, because they were introduced in previous micro series.
But do you think they're actually going to do them, or do you think that was just like a nod of we're not really going to do these characters, but here they are?
Dude, they're doing the Technodrome. I'm pretty sure we're going to get Bebop and Rocksteady.
Because it's been so long that I'm kind of going, maybe they aren't. Because they've done a lot already, if you know what I mean.
I don't think they're pulling any punches with the goofiness of the '80s show and like making those concepts work. I'm pretty confident we'll see them eventually. They're such a part of what people love about the '80s show.
Because I really do love that comic. It is amazing. I mean, like, there was a few months ago I was behind, and it was kind of cool because I got to read the entire last arc in one day.
Yeah. Nice.
Because I had only read issue number, I want to say, what was the last arc start at? Yeah, I was like 1 or 2 books in, and I had just gotten 15 and 16, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to read these all together. It had been like 2 months since I had read 13, and I was like, okay, I'm going to read 13, 14, 15, 16, and I did that, and it really does work better when you read them like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I absolutely do think they should take cues from this. My biggest thing is people are thinking that Michael Bay is basically like the end all be all to this movie, and I don't necessarily think that's true.
Yeah, I mean, he's hands on with hiring people to write the screenplay, the director, the cast. Like, he's involved with every aspect of the project. So, I mean, his influence is going to be everywhere, but he's not, sitting down and filming the thing and like writing it himself. But this is the guy that makes Transformers films. He doesn't really have a good eye for filmmaking and people that are talented filmmakers, just based on the films he's made himself and the films he's produced with that production company before. Plus the fact that he hired Liebsman really worries me.
Yeah. I know, I agree with you. Like, I did say one thing. If they ever make a Contra movie, I do want them to hire Michael Bay, because I think that would be a movie that I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
That'd be a movie that I wouldn't care if it was goofy, over the top, and had explosions every 5 seconds, because that's what the game actually is.
Yeah.
Like, that has Michael Bay. Like, if I didn't know better, I would have thought he made that game.
Yeah.
Do you disagree with that?
I've never played Contra before.
Oh, it's essentially what it is you play two...
I know what it is. I've just never played it before. I've seen footage and stuff. But
yeah, but it's basically explosions every 5 seconds.
That's awesome.
And it's essentially Michael Bay. Like, it's a Michael Bay video game.
That's awesome.
With aliens at the end. Which, he likes aliens, I think.
He seems to, anyway. Things from other planets.
And I mean...
I think I'm actually going to have to get going soon, so...
Okay.
Well,
we talked about our thoughts.
Yeah, I'm just on a tight schedule here, sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine, that's fine. No, we got our thoughts out, so any last comments?
I'm trying to think. Casey Jones, would you introduce him in the first film, or would...
Absolutely,
yeah,
no,
Casey
100%.
Jones, he's one of my favorite Turtles characters.
Absolutely, 100%.
But that's the only thing I can think about. I think we covered pretty much all the bases, so...
Okay. This was Goku Criticism 1.
And Dan.
See you next time, YouTube.
Bye.